Good morning, good afternoon, good night. Whatever time you're watching this, as always, thanks for watching Common Sense Fishing. Get out of here. It's a great way to start the live stream. Anyways, I got my door open and I'm in like my little man cave that I created here. So sometimes you guys might hear some noises from the house. It's a Friday. We have a birthday party tomorrow. There's a couple kids spending the night, so hopefully it won't be too loud. But how's everybody doing? Hope you guys and gals are going to get out there and do some spawn fishing. It's that time of year. So, hey, Gerbs, nice to see you on. How's it going? So, get out there, get your fishies. This is that time that you really want to capitalize on being out there. It's been spawn time for a while now. They're just moving back and forth and on and off of the beds depending on weather, sunlight, temperature, everything. So, it was like 87 degrees the day before yesterday, and then yesterday it was like 71 or 72 or something like that. We had a major temp drop and it was still warm as heck outside. The water temp was 66 degrees and about 90% of the beds were completely empty with not a single fish on them. It was so crazy, at least at the lake that I was at. So I know Lake Don Pedro right now, they're full on beds. And a lot of the other lakes, they're stacked on beds right now. But I was at Salt Springs, so we were trying to go find some big mamas. There's just nothing but a bunch of males up there. The big females are backed off just a little bit. They're bunching up into groups of twos and threes now to do the spawn. There's a lot of beds starting to show up. But at that fishery, the fish for that particular day pulled off their beds. So there was some interesting behavior that I noticed. The way that we fished, I'll let you guys know what I think we did wrong, what we did right. At the end of the day, we still came through with like a 13 plus pound bag of fish for our best five. Did all right. But I lost 3 and caught like 5. And my buddy, he caught like 4 or 5. I don't think he lost 1, I think. And it was just a real odd day. But I have my personal feelings. Like, we were fishing slow, but I don't think we were fishing slow enough. So I'll explain what I'm talking about, and also talk about some of the best spawn fishing tips for these finicky bass. At the end of the day, I changed tactics and walked around from shore and started fishing and caught quite a few bass like that. And I put one of the fish on video. They were all about the same size, so it was like time to go home. Didn't record after that. Plus I was kind of getting spooked. There was someone with a bulldog running around, or pit bull, and I don't mind dogs. I've had a bunch of them. I just hate seeing big dogs like pit bulls, German shepherds, Rottweilers off their leash, because no matter how well the dog's trained, you never know how they're going to act to a stranger. Most of the time, fine, but it's just that 1 in 100. Like, you know what I mean? I've had a big old dog try to bite me before, so it's like I'll take a wrench to that sucker or kick him in the head, but I don't want to do that in front of somebody, right? So it's a catch-22. It's like, so it was like, yeah, well, it's time to leave anyways. They pulled up and they started partying out where I was fishing. So it's like, yeah, we'll leave him alone. I'm sure the dog was fine. I walked by, the dog didn't even look at me. But still, I was like, I don't know. I got beat up fishing on a boat for like half the day. We got there around like 8 probably, and fished until about 2:30 maybe. And it was tough. Maybe 10 fish in the boat between the two of us. Maybe 9, I think, in the boat between the two of us. And then I caught a bunch on shore, so not a bunch, but a few. And so I mean, it was not a numbers day. We didn't catch a big bag. We didn't catch a bunch of bass. It was just kind of like a blah. Like, we thought fishing should have been much better. Water temps were 66. There were beds in certain areas, but then there were areas that didn't have beds. So it was like, you could tell it's still early spawn. But I was wondering, I was like, could these bass really tell? I guess they can tell that there's a system moving in, because they have an air bladder that's affected by barometric pressure. When pressure rises and lowers, they know that. And they say a rising barometric pressure is good, but a lowering one is bad. And so, or when it's too high, it's bad, right? So pressure and temperature correlate. So if you have a temperature drop, you're going to have a pressure drop. So being that it was 80 something degrees the day before, and then 70 something degrees, we had like a 12 or 13-degree temperature drop. So I'm sure we had a pretty significant pressure drop. So these fish backed off of their beds. It was so weird. Or what they were doing, their second case scenario is because it's stained dirty water, and the bottom is really dark. So the fish blend in real easy. Water visibility was about 4 or 5 feet at the max. I'd say it was 3 feet in general. If you got deeper than about 3.5 feet, you couldn't see the beds unless you were like right over them. So then you could see them almost down into about 4.5, 5 feet, but you couldn't see them from a few feet away. You'd had to be right over them, in which case you'd spook the fish, right? But most of the beds you could see were in like 2.5, 3 feet of water max. And there were just these big bright circles. You could tell they were beds, and they had no fish on them, most of them. So, like I said, either the fish had pulled off, which is what makes sense, is we fish shallow a lot and mid. We tried a little bit of semi deep, but we just couldn't get bit. And I think based on how I think we were getting bit throughout the day, plus what I seen at the end of the day, I'm pretty damn sure those fish were right next to their beds where we couldn't see them a foot or two off. Hey, no limit. How's it going? Nice to see you. I just sent everybody's stuff off, so you're going to like what you got coming. So appreciate the support. Plus, awesome time at the game, brother. But so these fish. So let's tell you the story. Let's see. So our Salt Springs, the bottom of the lake is pretty dark. The water is kind of brownish stained, but it's still got decent visibility, maybe 3 to 5 feet max. However, at 5 feet, the bed's not very clear unless you're right over it, right? So, um, what I noticed is I seen a bass at the end of the day when I was shore fishing. I found bass on their beds or right near their beds. So there would be a bed, and the bass would be like 2, 3 feet away from the bed, just chilling. And I'd be like, "Oh, there he is." I'd spot him looking around the bed, and they would be either two of them, like the male and female, sitting off. Sometimes even there were three, like the female had, I don't know if there's one female, two males, or if it was whatever it was. But I seen a group of three at one set. I seen two and a couple others, and then I seen a bunch of beds that only had the male on them, just one fish. And none of the beds. Well, actually, I take that back. Out of all the beds, two of them had fish directly on the beds that wouldn't barely move unless you got right over them. Um, like as soon as you got right over them, then they'd spook off, and they weren't locked like that. But if you hung back, they'd kind of just warily look at you, like you could tell they'd see you, but they wouldn't spook that easy. And then there was one or two beds that had fish that would spook every time they seen you. They'd do this circle thing, and then if you just waited for a few minutes, they'd come right back, and if they noticed you again, they'd do it again. And they were just so I think what was happening is there were probably fish all over the place. And I noticed that what happened was I pitched at one of these particular bedding fish, and he bit right away. And I missed it, and then he wouldn't bite for like 20 minutes straight. He just would not bite. I tried changing the lures, wouldn't bite. But every time I could get him semi interested, but he wouldn't bite. Then I took a drop shot and I cut the tag off, and I removed the weight, and then I just nose hooked a robo worm, and then I casted it and I fished it weightless and just let it slow sink because the weight of the hook would drag it down a little bit. So I'd cast it 2 or 3 feet past the bed. First time, boom, stroked that fool. And then I got to a bunch of other bedding fish, and I noticed that they only cared if the lure was near the bed from with about a foot of any side. So they would watch the lure, but the second it came within it didn't need to touch the bed. All it had to do is come into this like zone, right? It was this imaginary zone. But then the fish, when the lure went into it, the fish would pay it attention, look at it, follow it, kind of check it out. And if you worked it long enough in that zone, slow, and you just wiggled it, the fish would come, it would look, you wiggle it a little more, and each time it's moving a little bit, fish kind of looks. Then you dead stick it, fish gets kind of close, and you pop it once, and then you dead stick it. Then the fish picks it up, and you see your line move. That's how they were biting. So um, the problem is looking back at the footage and just knowing how we were fishing, we were spot locking and we were fishing what we thought would be slow. But in reality, when we would cast, our worm was working past and near those beds just too fast. I could imagine we were pop, leave it sitting there, fish kind of look, pop, fish might come look, pop, and then gone. Now it's out of that zone. Fish don't care anymore. And we're just casting time after time again and just occasionally getting fish when the fish are more aggressive, when there's maybe the fish locked on the beds and we just get lucky enough to cast on it. Because I think with the water clarity, there probably were a lot of fish near their beds, like very close to their beds. And we seen a lot of beds, but we didn't see many fish. But that's because the water clarity or just the bottom was just so pitch black that you look down and you only can see these white circles every once in a while, but you only see them about 3 to 5 feet, maybe 6 feet away. And at that point, the fish can almost guaranteed see you. So we even creeped up on some beds and seen a fish on them. But the second that we seen the fish seen us, or knew or seen us even before. And the second like you make contact with that fish, it just turns off and swim, and then it disappears. And you see the white bed with a dark shape over it, and then as soon as you approach, it just swims off. So looking in hindsight, the whole shoreline was littered with those. We seen them. We should have pulled off, spot locked, and should have either blind fished or knew where those beds were at, casted at them, and just dragged painfully slow, and then dead stick for a minute or two with a little twitch, and then stop, and then dead stick for a minute. And even if you're running your lure, let's say 10, 15 feet, and you're not hitting a bed yet, all you have to do is get within a foot or two of a bed. And there were so many that almost every other cast, you probably could have got a fish. We probably could have caught 30 or 40 if we would have known what the actual technique is, because at that particular moment, the fish were in that mood where they're literally ultra finicky, where they're very attentive, they're very spooky, they're not yet fully locked on the beds. They do those big circles, they come, they check out, and then there's a ton of 2-pounders. So it's like, how much time do you waste trying to get one 2-pounder to bite if you're trying to sight fish, right? Because there wasn't a lot, we couldn't find anything really over 3 or 4 pounds. We seen one fish that looked like it might have been 4 on a bed, and it had 2 other smaller ones that like 2.5 pounder with it, grouping of 3 on one giant bed. And they all took off, and they would come back occasionally and then take off, but they would never let you get close enough. And then we'd try fishing for them, but we couldn't get them. And I think it's because most of the time when we were doing that, we were fishing too fast. And then at the end of the day, when it was getting towards the end of the day, after, you know how like in most fisheries, unless it's, certain times of the year, that kind of 10 to 1 or 2 o'clock window can kind of suck. And it's the low light in the morning and then the low light in the afternoon that can do really good. So it kind of seemed like that was the case. But again, based on what I seen from shore, and it was still only like 2:33, I just think that we needed to fish a little slower. So if you're out there and you encounter that, my tips to you guys would be this spawn. If you see fish on beds and you're casting at them and you're getting them, great. Keep doing what you're doing. Don't listen to me, right? Or listen to me, but just do what you're doing and have fun and catch fish. Try your different lures, your jigs, your drop shot, your Ned rig, your shaky, whatever works for you that you like bed fishing with. Something usually with an open hook that you don't have to swing too hard, unless you're fishing for the big mamas and you see them. Right now, you're going to notice thousands of fish 1 to 3 pounds that are just, or 1.5 to like 3 pounds. And you might see the occasional, but if you can find the big monsters, that's where you might need to throw something bigger like a hud or a bigger worm or a bigger jig or something at them. But you can catch them with the finesse tactics too. Would just really suck to hook an 8 to 10, 12 pound bass and be using 8 pound finesse gear stuff like that you're using from the winter, and have this thing just dog you and then take you into a tree that you didn't know was nearby, or a big rock or something, break you off, or just shake you off on a jump or two. Um, so, just not fun. Then the other thing is, when you're using that kind of line, if you do manage to catch it, you're going to have to fight that fish until almost death. Basically, that fish is going to have to give up every bit of energy it has. If you have bigger gear and bigger line, you can kind of horse the fish in a bit, control it, and get it in and keep it healthier. But if you have light line and you have to fight a 10 pounder for like 30 minutes or 10 minutes, and it's going everywhere and it takes forever and a day, that fish is just gonna float up dead basically at the end, like, oh, all right, I give up, So this is gonna give all its power trying not to get away. And if you have a double digit on 6 pound or 8 pound test, you cannot force it. So you bring those fishes in exhausted, because anything that they have to give is going to be more than what your little flimsy rod and line can really take if you're, without your drag giving a little, right? So, um, that's why this time of year you should, if you're finding the big fish, fish with another thing I would recommend is fish with the right gear. Don't don't cruise the shoreline catching 1 to 3 pound bass with your 8 pound test and then roll on a 10 pounder and throw the same shit at it, because you'll regret it if you hook that fish and it goes on a run like a giant carp and you have zero control. Because the second you try to really turn that fish or stop that fish, it's going to snap your line, like nothing when it's that big. And most of the time, I've had a lot of experience with this with bigger fish, actually, with using like 8 or 10 pound test and using medium action spinning rods. I've lost a ton of double digits at the Delta when they run me into docks and other things, and I have all this open room. I hook them and I fight them and I'm doing great, but it goes on one of its crazy runs and it just cuts sideways, and I'm trying desperately to turn it, but I can't go too much further. You'll snap the line and the thing just charges underneath docks and everything else. Next thing you know, either pops off, snaps you, or gets you wrapped up in something down there in one of the boat holder thingies. Uh, any number of things underneath the dock, one of the support beams, whatever. It's just, you're not gonna turn that fish when you're using light gear like that. Yeah, and the Delta fish are extremely strong, a lot stronger than lake fish because they deal with current. Most of these lake fish, it's great and all, but they're weaklings compared to the Delta. You catch a 4 pound Delta bass will almost always outperform a 4 pound lake bass, because the Delta has a current that the fish are fighting. They're moving with it a lot of the time, but they have to fight it. These fish are like really strong. They're beefy. The Delta fish are usually just more savage. You could tell. You look at them, they're just stronger, thicker. They just, the fish at these main lakes, they move around. Of course, there's some of these lakes have a little current in them, but even if they want to cruise, they can go up the whole damn lake from one end to the other. But there's not much of a fight. So in the Delta, if a fish wants to move opposite the current, he's got a little bit of a struggle. And then even if he wants to stay in position, he's got to fight the current just to hang on a point, right? But that's what they'll specifically do to feed at the Delta. They'll hang on those tule, those little willows and the tules and stuff, and the big structures that kind of create little mini points where the shoreline all kinds of looks the same, and then all of a sudden you've got this one little grouping of the stuff. If there's any good sized fish in that area, it'll be right there. That's an easy way too to figure out fish at the Delta, is because there's so much good potential spots that there could be a big fish almost anywhere. And then you'll look at an area and there'll be docks everywhere, there'll be weed clumps everywhere. It's like, well, which one holds the, hey Ray, I got your stuff out. The Yeah, I got your stuff out as well. So just letting everybody know. I finally got everybody's mailers out with their lure packs and everything. It's just been super hectic. So thank you guys. Appreciate all your support. So, anyways, I was going off about, oh, shit scared me. That was just a fly. I thought it was like a bee or something landing on my face. Look at me. I just did not expect that. Oh, shit. Landed like right on my cheek. Don't. Oh, man. So, anyways, where was that? So, we were talking about spawn fishing. And I had, like my recent adventure out at Salt Springs. It was interesting. The fish were real finicky, and I had my sneaking suspicions on what we were doing wrong, and I'd make some recommendations, but I don't like to push, and I don't act like I know it all, and I don't. Sometimes I'm just messing up along the road learning as well. But I just had a feeling because we tried running crankbaits, spinner baits. He threw some top water. He threw a fluke. He threw all kinds of different stuff. We were throwing Nico. I was throwing drop shot, all kinds of other different stuff. I was running a crankbait, and we couldn't get bit burning things, hopping, wiggling. We couldn't get bit moving real slow, barely. We tried shallow. We tried medium. We tried even slightly deep, and didn't really see any fish on the fish finder. It was crazy. But that's because really when it tracks good, it's going to be a little bit deeper than 10 feet, 8 to 10 feet or deeper. So those fish were sitting in 4 to 6 or 4 to 8, and they were right around their beds, a lot of them. And then a ton of them were in 2 feet of water, 2 feet of water max, 2 to 3. So anywhere from maybe 12 inches of water down to like 3 feet. There was nice numbers there too. But the problem is I did decent afterwards after I got out on shore by just slow fishing, and I had to fish really slow, and then I would whack them. But I would see that there's a bed and there's a fish there. I'd just leave it alone. My spook it. I'd go, give it 2, 3 minutes and then cast at it. And every other cast or two might get bit or get a fish. It wasn't too hard. You just had to go spot some beds. And from the shore, it's kind of tough there because the whole lake is so damn shallow. So I found a particular spot that had a decent little drop off, but it wasn't real deep because none of that lake is. And so I was able to spot a couple of beds and did great. Just even not even seeing the fish, just seeing the beds and knowing that there'll be a fish near the bed. So just making some random casts around that bed and just rolling slow. Jerry Rice, if only the one and only. Look at that. Salt Springs Valley Reservoir in Salt Springs Valley, the town. It's up by like south or west of Jackson, and it's kind of like the Kelsey Bass Ranch, but a lot bigger. It's a big, like basically a farm lake. It's public. It's $20 to launch and park, and go in with your boat. And it's largemouth only. So there's a ton of largemouth in there. There's no spotted bass. It's catch and release, but you can keep crappie. So they do have crappie in there, so you can go catch crappie and all that. But it's a nice little fishery for sure. There's a lot of monster fish in there. So it's a fun place to fish. It's kind of a little local secret. A lot of people know about it, but it's a nice little honey hole that you can go fish for fun and have some fun. It's a tough little lake, but I think like for spawn right now it should be killer. Just fish slow. If you can't fish moderate to medium, like if you're out there and you're chucking a jig or you're throwing a crankbait, you're doing top water jerk bait, try whatever you want, have fun. And if you're not catching size or numbers and it doesn't make sense to you, those fish are most likely doing like what they were to me. They're there. Mr. UCL, where were you at? Are you talking about Salt Springs or are you talking about a different lake? Because that's exactly how they were. So you see fish cruising, but the fish didn't bite and they were very spooky. But if you see the beds, what's happening is those fish are spotting you before or right around the same time that you're spotting them. And the second they see you, they're getting spooky or already moving off their bed. So they appear to be cruising when in reality, if nobody's messing with them, they're kind of situated near their beds, not necessarily on them. If you're, especially if you're talking about salt springs, as I've seen a ton of beds, and we super crept on a few of them, and there weren't no fish on them, but there was quite a few times I'd see fish to the sides of them. So putting all that together, I was like, man, there were probably fish everywhere underneath us where we were sitting. But anytime the within a so many feet radius, these fish would scare off if because they could see the boat, they could see you. So you had to make long casts and then you had to be slow. When I started doing that, and at the end of the day, I just started whacking them and doing really good and caught up. I was struggling all day. Plus, my wrist is, I need to buy a wristband. I do heating and air conditioning, and I was doing like 2 weeks in the bay where I was constantly getting up and down, doing brazing and welding, and then lifting myself up and carrying heavy stuff. Weightless wacky long cast, yeah, exactly. So weightless wacky rig, weightless Texas rig, or what I was doing at the end of the day is I just took my weight off my drop shot. So I was using a drop shot and doing all right, but then I noticed these fish were way too spooky, so I took the weight off. I cut it down so it was just a hook, an open hook. I nose hooked a worm, a robo worm, and with a nice spinning rod set up, you can cast pretty far. Hey, how's it going, RC Creative? And so you were able to cast pretty far with a weightless robo worm, like a pink margarita mutilator, something like that. And these fish were hitting it like almost every time once I started switching to do that within a few seconds of being anywhere near a bed or a fish. I didn't stay for long after I started doing that. And there was only one area of salt springs that I could do that from the shore. It was over by the dam. But everywhere else, the where I happened to be at, the dang uh the grade was just way too even. It was way too far out. So nose hook, yeah, nose hook is how I was working at weightless, and I started doing a lot better when they're like that. So a wacky rig would be straight killer. Just make sure that you're real slow. See the presentation. The I don't think the lure is the most particular. I think the weightless helps big time because I watched it happen. I was throwing a drop shot, I get bit, I get a fish, but it would take a long time to piss that fish off. So I pulled off my weight and I cut the tag down and I just go nose hooked robo worm. And these fish started falling for it super easy. They didn't have to wait a third of the time. And the bite was just not more aggressive, same thing. They pick it up and they slowly swim off. And so it was but it was so easy to hook them without that weight in the way too. I didn't lose any. So it was pretty cool not having that weight swinging around, twisting your line up. So a lot of times when people get line twist too on their fluorocarbon, they complain about it, and people talk about getting your line wet, making sure it comes off the spool the same way that it's going on your reel. All those are great tips, being real tight. But I think a lot of the time you develop line twists based on the type of lures you're using as well. So, like when you're using a drop shot and that free weight, if you're not using like a spin shot VMC hook, that weight twists up and then the line twists up. Everything starts twisting, and you'll start to see it where it braids up and your line just kind of bunches up. That happens a lot if you drop shot. So, if you drop shot fish, your line twist is probably caused by your weight if you're casting out and working it in. Or even then, even if you're just dropping down on fish, when the fish come up and shake and that weight just goes, it's just going to give you a lot of line twist. So, but anyways, yeah, that's how we were catching them basically. and had a good time. So if I was you and you're spawn fishing, um, remember to have a couple different tools in your toolbox. In my opinion, you want to have a jig. You want to have something that's got a bigger presentation. So if you find a big fish on a bed, you can try the jig, and a jig might piss it off. Reeling in too fast can make a twist as well. There's a couple different ways. Overspooling your reel. If you're reeling it in too fast while you've got a fish on and you're having drag come out at the same time and you're just like pulling it off really tight. The other thing is going backwards against the way that the line comes off the spool. They sell like line conditioner. You can put it in warm water. One way I was taught by an old timer is if you get line twist in your rod, take your rod into your backyard, front yard, and tie your line around. So this is a cool little trick. I'll share this with you guys, and it actually works pretty decent. So he would wet his reel with some warm, like not warm, but kind of hot water, but not too hot. He would wet the line. He'd take the spool off, put it in a cup of hot water real quick, and set it in there for a bit. And then he'd attach it, put it back on. Then what he would do is he would open his bell, right? He had his line through his eyes, and he would tie it to one of the fence posts, right? To one of his fences in his yard. He'd open his bell and he'd string it all the way out until the line was completely at the end. And then what he would do then is he would hold it super tight and walk forward slowly while re-reeling it in, and it would basically twist up towards the end, and he just cut that last few feet, and did really good job untwisting the line for me. This is a dude's almost 80 years old, taught me that trick. So I don't know. Hopefully that helps, but yeah, reeling slack in, they'll do it as well. Hey, how's it going, 209 Bassin? Sam Pro. I love it. That's my nickname that my real friends know me by, because they make fun of me on the down low with it at first, because they all support what I do, especially now. You know, they're cool dudes. But when I first started, it was like you couldn't do anything without being accused of doing it for clicks, or like, look at Mr. Sam Pro. You got the GoPro. Now you're a pro all of a sudden. Like, no, it's like, it's just trying to help and I'm having fun. And if I could get paid to do what I love, why would you not do the same thing? And the idea, though, is you got to be good enough and you got to be entertaining enough. So I've got a mouthpiece for sure. I can crack a few jokes. You know, we have a good time here on the channel, but I truly do try to just share some wisdom, the tips and tricks that I've learned throughout the years that my friends show me, that other people show me. I try to share what other people show me that they say that I can share, let's say, and any little tips or tricks that I figure out on my own. And sometimes I'll take other people's ideas and I'll modify them. So Jay put me up on game with the Sam Pro. You know it. Exactly. Jay, Jeremy, a couple of the close homies, they know what's up. They're like, hey, Sam Pro. So you guys are more than welcome to call me by that too. I don't mind. It's an endearing nickname of mine. So did I end up going to Yosemite? Yeah, I went to Lake Yosemite and skunk butted it. So I didn't see a single bed. Um, it was windy. Couldn't see the bottom good. Didn't see any beds. Water temperature was like 60 degrees, I think it was. Or what was it? I went all back in the canals. Man, I spent 5 hours there, something like that. Not too long, but five hours, not even one single bite. And then Jeremy was there, Jeff Garcia was there, and Jeremy says he got one bite on a crankbait, and that was it. And he was there the same amount of time as I was. So 4 fishermen there all day got skunked. That's why that place is called Skunk Lake, for a reason. man. But then there are days you go there and catch 6 and 7 pounders. I'm gonna go back to Yosemite Lake for sure and do a video there. I gotta go smash some bass and get revenge. I'm gonna do it in the boat too. I don't care. I could do it from shore. Actually, probably a little better because there might be some bass spawning in 1-2 feet of water, but in that boat, the way the shore is, it's kind of the same thing as Salt Springs. You almost have to get on the bass before you can even see that there's any beds or anything there. So I'm making sure that isn't my dogs or my puppies. Like, oh, I got 3 German Shepherds now. I'm a fool, right? What up from your vacation, Charles Chalk? I just sent you your stuff too. I think I told everybody I put a shout out, a little message letting everybody know, hey, I got you your stuff. That sounds too much like my puppies though. Man, hey everybody, how's it going? Do you guys mind? I don't know. Should I go check? That just sounds like my puppy's in the front yard. They shouldn't be in the front yard though, unless the kids have them. So then we're probably good because there's people here. Hey, Racho, nice to see you on. So, found a bed there by a lay down in the back corner on the kayak. Nice. Yeah, there was a I didn't fish like half the lake. What I did is that I focused primarily on by the launch around the piers, going up to going up to before the pier. We fished the pier a little bit, but then we moved on to by the outlet, by one of the outlets right there, not the gated outlet, but the just open outlet in the back in the by Scouts Island and all that, and fished all around there for a minute and in that canal all the way up to the bridge, no luck. And then went to the backside, fished from like halfway down from the back all the way to the canal inlet, all the way in the inlet, and then took off, went home. And I have a feeling that those fish were there in plenty of places. They were doing the same thing that they were doing at Salt Springs. I think the bass right now in these shallower body of waters, I think at Don Pedro, McClure, they're probably on a little bit different of a kick. But I think like these shallow body waters, like Eastman, Clear Lake, probably even, um, Salt Springs, even the Delta. But the Delta is a different player because it has current, tide, it's got all these other factors, rivers that feed into the system, so like the temperatures can be different. The delta is a odd beast as well, but these shallow body waters like Lake Yosemite, these fish are right now, they seem to be in a real skittish mood, like they're coming up to spawn. The males are fanning beds. There's days where you'll see them up there. You might have a good fun day. The next day you go and it's a ghost town. You see beds, but there's like one random fish here and there that you cast everywhere. You look, you can't find them deep, can't find them shallow. You don't know what the hell's going on. That's because they're in these situations. I think what's happening is a lot of the times too, you got to see if the lake's rising, because the fish may have been spawning in 2 to 3, 4, 5 feet, whatever, but usually 2 to 3 feet of water. And let's say the lake raises a foot or two. Now that bed's in 4 or 5 feet of water. And depending on visibility, you may be getting close and looking and seeing new beds with no fish or one little fish, but there may be tons of beds underneath you that you could barely see. And then if you do see them, by the time you get to see them, because they're 5 or 6 feet deep now, the fish are probably already gone because you scared them off by putting your boat near them. So, and then you can't see those beds from far enough away. And then what they'll do is if they're not on the bed, they're in this zone that is around the bed. They don't leave and go to halfway to the other side of the lake all of a sudden. They don't set up, pull up to an area, say, I'm going to spawn here, start making beds and stuff, and then just disappear. They're somewhere right there. So usually the trick is you almost have to dead stick, you have to weightless, and then you literally have to let, like if you're weightless Cinco, like Mr. Jerry Rice, right? Like what he was talking about, weightless Cinco, you're gonna have to cast that out, let it sink all the way to the bottom, and wait a second. and then pop it very small so it just goes and then sinks again, because you're only going to have one, maybe two pops before you leave the bed, if you're even on a bed. But like I said, there's a strike zone. So you have a little bit of a room around the bed in which the fish are definitely going to bite your lure. But if you watch their behavior, they're real skittish. They're real selective. They're analyzing. They're checking things out. They're like thinking twice. Should I? Shouldn't I? And so you have to give them, a lot of times, you can either run through with something like a crankbait and force them to do it. But if you've been fishing a crankbait all day and you're not getting bit, well, then that's obviously not how you get these fish to bite. So you either have to move real slow, and you can't go too slow, because if you sit there, the fish will look at it, and then it looks at it, and it's already like, wait a minute, this thing's dead. And then you pop it, and then the fish is like, huh? Backs off, kind of. Even it's like you get their interest. You don't want to just keep popping it and wiggling it, because the fish might be like, you'll notice they're skittish. You're moving too much. So there's like a perfect little play. It's like dead stick it for a few seconds, let it kind of sit there, and then pop it a little, or just literally just a little twitch, and the lure goes, and then settles back down. Leave it there for a second too, and then maybe sit there and just shake your rod, so your lure is just kind of going like this for a second, and then stop. And you do that, and you move your lure real slow, right? And you'll smack them. They'll come for you. They'll hit. You'll destroy them. I've done really good. I just sometimes put my foot in my mouth, basically trying to figure them out, and I'm overthinking them. And I've seen this pattern play out many a times in pre-spawn and early spawn, and so you can't force yourself on these fish. When they're ready, you'll know. When you go up there and you start casting on the shore and you get bit instantly, there'll be that hot streak where you can just cover water and pound these fish up shallow, or cruise and look for beds. And then when you see a big old giant on a bed, it's not going to be as skittish. It's still going to be kind of skittish, but it's not going to be as skittish as they are right now. So you can just kind of do a U-turn, come back, chill for a second, and then start fishing for that thing. But right now, they're just not there yet, at least not at certain lakes. So I have a buddy, though, who's at McClure, him and his brother, and they've both been destroying them. Said there's beds everywhere. But based on the pictures that I'm seeing, they're all under 2 pounds, and they're all males. So I don't know if the females have moved up. But in this instance, let's just say there's males and there's beds in 2 to 3 feet of water. Those females should be in that 4 to 8 foot, maybe 10-foot range. They're not going to be far away. They're not going to be far off. They'll be right there, ready and waiting. So if you notice you're catching a bunch of small fish that are in the 2 pound and under range, you're catching all the males. That means there's females nearby. There's bigger fish nearby. You're in the wrong strike zone. You're getting all these small males. And if you see them both up there, that could be the case, right? The males usually eat first. Their job is to protect the nest. However, if you catch the male, the female will bite next if you box them. So if you're knowing for sure that they're pairing up and they're on the bed, great. But if you're casting and you're being consistent and you're trying and you're looking and you see a fish here, it's a dead giveaway when you see beds with one fish on it. That's a male. The female is somewhere nearby. It's just usually off a little bit more, waiting. So fish back behind, maybe use a little bit of a bigger lure. And again, you're probably either going to have to do one of two techniques this time of year. That's why I do love a crankbait, a spinner bait, and something that will entice this big fish to make that split-second decision that, hey, I'm waiting, I'm chilling here, I don't want this thing just came by in my face, eat or not. It may say no, but it may say yes. And that's, a reaction bite. You're trying to get that fish to react to bite. But there are times where these fish just will not do squat. They won't cooperate. No reaction bite. Then that means you need to go ultra slow. You need to put that bait by the fish's face. Like, hey, fish, like, I don't want to eat. Yeah, but I'm right here. I know I need some energy. I got all these eggs in my belly. Well, you're dumb. You're moving. You're clearly alive, but you're not moving very fast. And eat it. Well, if you're just like boing, fish like, I'm not eating it. What the hell is that? Boing, and it's gone. All right, whatever. I'm not. I'm concerned with my the fish is probably within eyesight of the bed or the male, especially if they've already started to pair, because they can go on and off, back and forth between being ready to spawn and actually spawning and not. The weather, all kinds of factors, pressure, fishermen can push these fish off for a few days and then they can come back on until they actually do their thing. And you'll also have different waves. So while one set is up there spawning, there may be others back behind them waiting to come up and do their thing too, because spawn will go all the way until April and sometimes even May. So um, spawn is just it's an awesome time of year. This is your best one of your best chances at getting a double digit or a monster. So I'm hoping to put something big in, but I've got a lot of work I've got to put in on my business, the Air Doctor Heating and Air. I appreciate everybody, so I'm always going to try to rely on putting out these live streams. I'm less concerned though with the. I want to. I'm obviously into fish, but it's like I'm gonna go fishing and have a good time, record them and share the videos with you. But I'm less concerned with like trying to do 3 or 4, get out as much. I'm trying to make sure that when I do get out, that it's more quality though. So instead of going on 2 or 3 trips and catching 20, 30, 40 fish a trip, or 10 or 15 a trip, and having 10, 12 pound bags consistently, or even 8 pound bags, with the occasional nice 15 pound bag in there. I want to start putting out 1 or 2 trips that are just 15 to 25 pound bags, more unique stuff. So I'm going to start also focusing on throwing swim bait only. So I think what I'm going to do is just take out swim bait only rods, swim bait only lures, and then record it all. And if I skunk, I'm going to put a video out. My first attempt, and then I'm going to put it out again and again unless it becomes like super repetitive. And 10 videos in, I still don't have a swim bait fish. Hell no, it better not be like that, right? But then you guys will get to see my first big swim bait bass, because I've caught bass on swim baits, but none of them I've never landed a big one. I've lost 2 monsters on swim baits, but I fished them for a while back in the days, and they were just nothing but a hassle to fish all day and not get bit. It was really annoying to me, hard to do, wasn't fun. I didn't enjoy it, so I'd rather just throw a worm and catch some fish than just fish all day. But that was a younger, more inexperienced and hyper version. That was me just not wanting to be bored. Like I needed to catch fish. It was almost like when you're a kid, right? If you take your kid fishing, the worst thing is you guys can have a blast, but if you don't catch fish, unless you have to really be having fun playing in the mud, frogging, throwing rocks, doing something to make it memorable. But if that kid catches fish, let me tell you, he's going to remember that experience, right? So, and then what you want to do as a father or a mother, right? If you're taking one of your kids fishing, is you want them to catch fish, and you want them to keep catching fish for a while until they're hooked, right? Like a drug, like until they're addicted, because then it's a great addiction. It's an awesome thing to do. It's good for your health. It's good for your mind, and it's good. It's a good stress reliever. It's a good hobby. It's good for the environment too. To take some fish out of the lake occasionally, so they don't overpopulate. I'll be dinks. So there's a balance to it. It's a good wholesome hobby, right? So it's like if you want your kids to get stuck on it, you got to have them catching something, and that's kind of how I was. And plus, it didn't help that I'm always trying to place. I want to put out YouTube content, so I'm like, okay, I can't be putting out a video where I get skunked. What the hell would that? Nobody would watch that, right? That's how I felt about it. So I've always focused on I've got to get some fish. So instead of doing what I used to do and just covering water and throwing a crankbait half the day, or throwing a jig half the day, or throwing a spinner bait, I now almost reliably fall back to like a Ned rig drop shot so that I can put some fish on the video. And that's been a self critique of mine, that I know how to fish many different other types of lures, and it's time to get back into the saddle of fishing how I used to, and getting a mentality that I honestly think you guys would probably enjoy the content much more if it was done like that, where I'm enjoying what I'm doing. I'm out power fishing. I mean, I can finesse fish too. It's just not winter. And then when it's needed, I can do it. But I think that it would be more entertaining content when I'm smacking bass on a spinnerbait. I'm going to be more excitable. I'm going to be more alive and energetic when I'm whacking fish. And they're usually bigger fish too. When you're catching jig fish, spinnerbait fish, crankbait fish, it's just so much funner than soaking a worm. You know, I mean, fish is a fish. Don't get me wrong. I like to catch them. But I think it would be better content. It'd be better for my fishing skills if I just resharpen up and focus on going after big fish. Like in the summertime, you guys will notice that. See, I get stuck like this from wintertime fishing when it's really finesse. And then when it's summertime fishing, I'll be preaching night fishing all the time. I'll be out throwing jigs right up on the rocks and getting snagged and getting the jig flung back at me like a bullet. But it's fun. I'll be crankbaiting at nighttime. I'll be doing top water at night. There'll be a lot of fun stuff I'm going to be doing at night, and I'll preach it. But that kind of tactics can work in the daytime. You just have to know when and where to use them, which I do. So I just need to really bring those old tools out of the box, so to speak. So that's what I'm going to be focused on doing here this next, because I got a lot of time too. I got to put into the air doctor heating and air to make my business. I'm a HVAC contractor, own my own business. So I got to make, for my own family and for my sake, I got to make this business successful. It means I got to put in the sweat, blood, and tears and hard work to do so. It's not just going to fall in my lap. So I'm going to have a lot of time dedicated to that. But what my free time I do have, is going to be spent a lot with family and stuff, but fishing. And so that's why I'm saying when I'm going to go on these fishing trips, I'm going to try to plan them a little bit more better, to where I'm going to more different lakes. I'm going to different spots. I'm going to places where I can power fish, like the Delta, Clear Lake, and just these odd lakes too that don't get fished a lot. And also, even if like, regardless of the type of fishing, doing more swim bait fishing, right? Throwing S waivers, sneaky Pete's, throwing depths, throwing HUDs, throwing all that stuff. I already have like two rods probably that'll work for swim baits, and I have a few decent swim baits. So I have something to start out with. But I think immediately I need to put my money where my mouth is. And the next rod that I'm getting, rod and reel, is going to be a swim bait combo. And I probably will buy a nice decent swim bait for my what do you call it, so that I just have confidence in it. Let's say that, like a depths 250 or something like that. Or I mean, I could also throw just a HUD. They're not too expensive. So it just depends. Glide baits for when the fish are suspended or moving a bit more, and then a HUD if they're on the bottom, right? So I will definitely be reporting back to you guys and gals with hopefully some great swim bait footage. So, anyways, we need a punching video. Oh yeah, get out to the Delta. Punching is fun. I'll show you guys some sneaky stealth punching. I'll show you guys punching through, like, with I actually am decent at punching. You guys haven't seen it probably the last couple years. I think really starting a YouTube channel has been good and bad for me in a couple different ways. And the way it's made me fish a lot more than I sometimes would have. I might just take some time off and then sometimes fish like a nut for a month straight. But I want to consistently fish and put stuff out there for you guys. So it's got a lot of positives for me. Meeting all the cool people, uh, building a cool network of fishermen that communicate, that can come and hang out, talk on this medium. Plus on Facebook, my Facebook group, Bass Fishing Lovers, it's like got like almost 20,000 members in under like 2 years, a year and a half. It's just exploded. I just started it, and it just went crazy. And we do a good job at kicking out all the spammers. It's gotten so large that it's almost gotten too large, where people don't interact with each other too much, because nobody had time to know each other. Everyone's new to the group, so everyone's also self-promoting, where they put their own YouTube videos up. Everyone's trying to get rich fishing or be a star. So it's like, hey, look at me, hey, look at me. So there's not a lot of genuine people on the internet these days. I mean, not saying you guys or anything, but I'm saying like in general, like when you go to these fishing pages, like I'll actually talk and comment on people's stuff. But it's a lot of people that are just like, hey, sub to my channel, hey, check me out, or they're trying to sell you something. It's just like, it's refreshing when you meet a nice, cool person who's just real and cool and just not all crazy like that, because that's just how like Facebook can be. It's just everybody pumping their own YouTube channels. And I get it, I got a YouTube channel too, but I genuinely want to have you involved. See, I don't want you guys all to become subscribers and just watch my stuff. I want you to comment. I want you to like, hopefully, right? If you guys get a chance, like the video tonight, help me out, and share the video, right? So other fishermen can find out about it and we can just grow. This is a cool little community. We talk entertaining stuff. It's a Friday, so we're gonna hang out. Of course, we're gonna chat a little bit. Sometimes go down the rabbit holes, and I read your guys' comments, all of them. So I would love to find a fish finder for videos dummies, how they work, how to read them. The fun, check out Fish the Moment videos. That's right. Fish the Moment is a great place to get highly analytical videos. I try to focus on a combination of honest to God tips and tricks on how to catch fish and showing that, but also I think I try to be entertainment as well. So I try to some of the organic actual moments of fishing, but fishing with me sometimes can be so raw or crazy and fun that a lot of the moments just wouldn't make good videos for a lot of people. Maybe like two-thirds of the people might love the video and then one-third might hate it, right? And unsubscribe or something. And then every other video you're gonna piss one-third off, where after so many, you've only got the most hardened diehard followers and crazy dudes like you, Bill Burr style, that are like left, right? So, this is a fishing channel, not, hey buddy, not a politics channel, or not a crazy debate channel or something. So uh I think what I try to do here is balance a little bit of like, what if you watch Fish the Moment, he's a great dude. Fish the Moment's a great channel to check out. Randy Blaucat is another channel where most of his videos are just him in his man cave like this, and then he has like little fishing tools or little lures, and he'll give some tips and tricks on like how to modify something, or he'll just tell you some tricks, or he'll do like what I do and he just talks to you. But his videos are only 5-10 minutes long, 15 minutes long. He doesn't do any, he does some live streams. They're usually with Fish the Moment, so they collaborate. But Fish the Moment's a very analytical angler. I'm analytical, but not on that level. That's like OCD analytical. So like I don't track everything, write it and document it, but it's done up here, and I'm pretty smart with my stuff. So like I may not have hard numbers exactly on when this, what time they, but I'm decent at saying, okay, the biggest fish of my life have tend to have bit here, did this or did that, and learn and adapt from what I'm doing, right? So I'm analytical, but not on that level. So I try to balance the content of being like, say, tactical bassin, plus say add in uh, and I'm not even on that level, because if we can grow the channel, I would like to hire and have help. I would actually like to get some tutorials on how to make better video stuff. What kind of gear can I get to provide you guys with better sound quality, better audio? Is my computer? I mean, it's like over $1,000 tower by itself. It was a decent computer when I bought it, but one of the best like normal ones, but it wasn't a super high end. Is it really that important, or should I get dedicated internet? It should be wired or Wi-Fi, so that I provide, let's say, the best streaming content, so that when we're doing live streams, there's not sound issues, lag, or any kind of connectivity problems. I'm not a techie person, so like, how can I would love to be able to talk like this and then at a moment break away really quick and bring up Google Earth or bring up someone else's YouTube videos, and then I can shut up for a second and we can play a few minutes of someone else's videos, critique them, talk about them, and not like talk negative, maybe if it's a bad video, or talk positive, right? And I'm one of those persons. I'll tell you all the YouTubers I like. Hey, go check out Thai Pig Patrol. Go check out Fish the Moment, Randy Blaucat. Everyone knows Tactical Bassin, Lake Fork Guy, or One Rod, One Reel Fishing. How about Bama Bass, Milliken Fishing? But I actually like the smaller, cool, homegrown channels like Greg Blanchard, like what the other one is. Why is this one? I was just thinking about it too. Why is it burning my mind? Not like Milliken Fishing and stuff like that. But oh yeah, Mikey Balls Fishing. Mikey Balls Fishing. He reminds me of like Mike Iaconelli. He's like a high energy, high strung, little scrawny dude. This kind of older looking, thin in hairline, so he looks kind of funny when you see him with his hat off. But he's a smart dude, good fisherman, nice guy. He's got a ton of cool content, and some of his videos got massive reach. I think he's got like less than or around 100,000 subs, but a great channel. And I've watched a lot of these guys when they had barely a few thousand, like me. So I'm down there. I'm under Tyler Frey and everybody else. So I probably have to do more tournament fishing. But I'm hoping with this live stream here, we can attract another group of fishermen too. To kick it and chill, to hey, let's talk, let's share, let's have a beer, let's sit around the campfire, tell some stories type shit, you know. And also the entertaining, the laughs, the fun that we get into sometimes. The random stories that you hear from me, it gotta be worth something, like, man, come on, that's comedy gold. And this real life true stories, you kidding? Like sitting through if you guys ever, I don't know, some of you older gentlemen might have been the type to ever have those listen stories where you get a story that you get to listen to, and your imagination, does all the imagery for you. So, I think those guys probably get a good kick out of the channel. I don't know. Hopefully everyone does. That's the name of the game. But, bro, the shroom story was funny as hell. Where do you find videos? Where do I find videos? So like for me, or if you're a little more expound on the question, Ray, I'll give you a better answer. So I have 410 videos. I have massive library of videos you can watch. I have all of my live streams are still up. I don't delete stuff, even when I go crazy and flip out and get mad or something happens, or I go on a rant and I start going down rabbit holes, or I get drunk and next thing you know, I'm rapping and singing. That's the kind of fun we have on the channel here. It's not consistent because I'm not trying to scare everyone away, because I'm not always consistently drunk or it's consistently, this or that. So, but I could be playing sober too and just go off on a tangent. But you guys know we have fun on this channel. But I try to keep it fishing related, and genuinely help with what I can. Some of you guys and gals may know a lot more than me about fishing. Heck, I don't know, but I'm decent at it, so I share. And I think it's the community though, more than anything. Also, like every Christmas I take care of kids, and I give them toys, and I love playing Santa Claus in a sense. So, I could tell you guys some crazy stories, right, about how that's why I do what I do. So, but yeah, it's a community thing too here. A community of fishermen and women that positively try to affect change and help each other. So that's the name of the game for this channel. That's the goal that I'm striving for, the vibe. But also, you friendly show, but I'd let my kids watch it. I'm just not uptight, stick in the mud. Some people are, and I can respect that. But so I try to be rounded enough and not as brash enough so that the show is for everybody. But you know what I mean? We have a good time here. Let's just say that. So you guys know that. Most of you guys are loyal guys that have been around for a long time, and I appreciate you. When we get the random new people on, I appreciate you guys very much. And hopefully, you found a new place you can kick it, hang out. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, we could talk fishing. I read comments, so like the other cool thing is say you want to know about something. If I don't know the answer, I'm not going to give you some bullshit. I'm going to tell you what's up. I'm going to be like, I don't know, but someone in the chat might know, might have a resource to point you. So that's also another cool thing about the live stream here is a bunch of fishermen with a bunch of knowledge here. And if you have a question like, hey, what do you feel about this, that, or other? I'll give my 2 cents, but I'm super cool with everyone else giving their 2 cents in the comment section. I mean, duh, it's it's the internet. Say what you want, but I'm not going to say I'm right, you're wrong. This is definitely an open market of ideas here. So, I like that about this. We don't usually go off down those roads too often, but you get some good fishermen that pop in on this channel here, and actually, there's some really good gems, and there's been some really good information discussed in the comment section, actually. So. That's another cool thing. Very interactive. So a lot of fishing channels, you're watching something after it's been put up. You don't have an opportunity in real time to engage with the host or with each other. And then the ones that are, I just think that are just usually super focused on money. Like Fish the Moment's a great channel, but like you got to pay to get certain breakdowns and this and that. I'll do it for free. But but also, I mean, I can't hate like my channel's not at that level. I'm not getting paid much. I'm beginner on YouTube. So if I were there, yeah, sure, as a way of making extra money, I'd probably have a feature and a setting. That's what we're working at with these memberships. So other than getting free stuff every month, basically, or getting at least opportunities to win stuff, and then every Christmas getting a gift, also early access and all that. I want to create something where you guys are treated to some cool stuff. Maybe some get-togethers, meet and greets for those of you who aren't around, not local, one-on-one options, and I'm totally cool with that right now too. If any of you guys ever wants to have a one-on-one session, wants to just chat, you got personal stuff you want to talk about, you got questions, being a member opens those doors to you. That's what I'm trying to create as well. And I don't mind talking about it here on the show, but we only have 2 hours every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and that's if I don't miss any. So once the show gets big and we grow enough, I'm hoping to create something unique here in this fishing community that I don't see too many other channels doing yet. So I don't know if it's going to succeed or not. We're growing relatively slowly here. The algorithm isn't very kind to us. The views, we do all right, but I just keep at it. Stay positive, man, and I appreciate each and every one of you guys. And who knows, one night I could go to bed and wake up, and the rest of the fishing community woke up to like, dude, let's go hang out with Common Sense Fishing, man. Right? Who knows? Or maybe I just suck, and who knows? We'll work on it, but that's the idea. Smash that like button, share the video. That's why I appreciate my members very much. Is the more members we get, I think YouTube's algorithms see, hey, people are investing in this channel. Let's push them out there a little bit. Or hey, wow, people are actually willing to help him invest, and they're seeing value in the channel. And I think that's what YouTube sees by that as well. So I appreciate each and every one of the subscribers, the viewers, but special shout out to the members. That's why you guys shoot. Today I spent over 200 and something bucks doing the shipping alone, getting mad packages out to everybody. I was at the post office for like 3 hours today. Here's a list. Here's one of the lists because I went twice. Show it from far away. Here's the one of the receipts from the post office from all the shipping. Look at do house after house after house after house. I don't want to get close enough where you can read any addresses or anything, so keep people's privacy. You know what I mean? But it's the internet, so you never know. How's everybody doing on this fine Friday, though? So I've really had only like two fishing trips to discuss. Me getting my butt whooped at Lake Yosemite, and then me having a decent time, but getting kind of beat up at Salt Springs Valley Reservoir. But learning from the two trips, kind of putting two and two together. I had fun at the end. I started whacking fish, and ended up with like, I don't know. I ended up with almost two limits, but that's not a lot. But it was for when you go 4 hours or 3 hours without a bite. It was pretty tough. So, but hindsight's 2020. That's why I try to share with you guys. If you're out there, you're fishing a few hours and you're not getting bit, and it's spawn time like this, they're there. You just need to slow down. I think fish blind. If you can't see, if the factors are working against you, there's a little bit of wind, so there's chop, and you just can't quite see the bottom good enough. Can't quite see the beds until you get too close. That you notice the fish are spooky. They're moving away from you. You're always too damn close to be able to see. You can't. You cast and they seem to swim away. That's when you need to back off. Give them room to breathe. Cast past the bed or next to the bed and slowly pull your lure onto the bed and leave it there and work it real slow. Fish real slow, you'll whack them, you'll stick them. And then the other trick is if you're not bed fishing, blind fish, just find a flat with hard bottom, pull off of it, cast up into 1 feet of water, and slowly work your lure back all over the place. Fan cast. They're there, they'll be there. Just trust it. And you'll start catching more fish by fishing more methodically than by being all like antsed out looking for that double digit, cruising around looking at beds. And when they're in this mode, when they're that finicky, when they're that picky, when they swim off, they can be really hard to catch. So one trick is too, though, cruise the shoreline, screw it, try to keep your eye out. And if you scare them, fine, but look for big ones. And then when you do scare off a giant, it's going to go back eventually within a few minutes. It's not going to wait. It's not going to swim to the other side of the lake just because a boat drew by it. If the giant's sitting up there, spawn time, and it's about to spawn, it's going to spawn, and it's going to spawn somewhere close by. Even if you spook the hell out of it, it's going to go right back. So do a circle, relax, take a deep breath, chill, and then start fishing for it. You don't have to. A lot of guys too, they stop and they just hover right away and then just start fishing for it. If you notice that the fish has noticed you, back off and give the fish time to forget you, and then slowly reapproach it, at which barely you can see it still, and then sight fish for it. That would be my tips for you. And when the bite turns on, when it's like really good though, when they're aggressively on their bed and they're actually biting lures that come anywhere near it or on it, that's one of the best times a year, and that'll be happening soon. But it's not always like that, because remember, they fish in waves, and then each spawning fish has like different stages it'll go through, where it's making the bed, they're clearing off the area, and then the whole time, if there's weather changes, pushing them on and off their beds, uh, they're going to be doing different things. So, and then they don't all come up and spawn at the same time. A big majority of them will, but they'll come in waves. So there's always different ways to fish, and different ways to, skin a cat or whatever they say. But the idea is if whatever you're doing isn't working, try something different. And a lot of the time, if you've tried the reaction, if you've tried bottom bouncing, you're trying everything, you need to usually fish slower. Um, that'd be my recommendation if you're struggling. Because you'd say, well, how could you struggle and spawn? It's killer. Well, we all four fishermen went out to Lake Yosemite, Skunk Lake, and we got beat up. It happens. So it'll happen to the best of us. Smash that like button if y'all get a chance. Now, any topics or things you guys want to discuss before we go for the night? It's 8:30. We usually get off at 9. I've kind of don't want to just bore you guys with the same old info, because that's what I've got for right now. I could probably think of a couple more tips and tricks. Carry your marker with you to put some of the chartreuse on your white baits. That helps. Um, Using white during spawn makes it a lot more visual for you to see your bait. And then when your bait disappears, just set the hook. You got a fish. Well, reel in the slack and then set the hook, or at least be prepared to check. Reel in the slack and check the when you get tension on it. Does the tension move or do anything? And then set the hook. So using white is one of the most visible colors there is in any kind of water, clear, stained, no matter what. If you're using the light color in stained water, you're not going to see it if it's pink or blue. If it's black or brown, you're probably not going to see it. But if it's white, you'll see that sucker. If it's chartreuse, you'll see that sucker. Clear water, you may see almost any color lure, right? But you're going to see white really good. So it just increases the distance at which you could bedfish. And last tip I think I've got for tonight's video, and again, I'm leaving the floor open to you guys. So at any time, go ahead and interject with your comment on anything you want to talk about, any breakdowns, any tips or tricks you want to discuss, any ideas you have, any experiences, fishing trips you like to share, feel free. But one last thing I'd like to say is that there are two main types of beds that I've found throughout the years. Okay. And this is a real important tip is if you are fishing a body of water that is a light colored floor, usually from, let's say, silt, there's an inch or two, or just a little bit of silt, and the rocks are kind of dark. When the fish, you look down, you see this tannish colored bottom. Now, if you don't have a ton of clams, right, in your body of water, when the fish dust their bed off, the bed will be darker than the dirt around it. So what you'll look and you'll see this water, and it'll all be this tannish brown. You know, the bottom, you'll be able to see the bottom has this muddyish brown tan look color to it, right? And then all of a sudden you'll see dark circles. Now, light circles, you'll see those too, but in that kind of water, particularly, unless there's seashells, or not seashells, I keep calling them that, but like those little, mussel shells, unless there's a lot of those on the bottom, if the bottom has a light tan look to it, that's silt usually, fine layer of dirt and dust. And when that's dusted off, if the rocks are red, brown, it doesn't matter. They're usually a darker color than the silt. The fine silt's almost like a blonde gold, right? It's not quite, but it's dirty brown. It's tan. So the rocks are going to have darker hues and colors to them, blacks and grays and reds. And so when the fish dust their bed off, you're going to see a dark circle. So when you start spotting beds, pay attention to what type of beds are they based on the bottom that you're fishing. Are they dark or light circles? So if they're dark circles, just start looking for dark spots. And then don't pull up to it to look. Assume there's a fish there and cast on it or right past. That's the best way. Cast past the dark spot and bring it to it. Here's another thing. When you have the dark beds, meaning that the silt the fine silt is a light color, and when the fish fans off the bed, the bed is darker. Well, the fish is dark as well. The fish is like a brownish, almost black. So you will not see those fish on the bed as easily until you get right above them, and then they swim off, and then you see that black body go over the light tan ground, right? And then you're like, oh, I just scared a fish off, because you can't see those bass on the bed. So if you're in that kind of fishery and you notice that the beds are a dark colored hue, then simply pull off and look for dark circles ahead of you with your sunglasses on and fish them. And just trust that there are bass there and just slow wiggle. And if you're paying attention to stuff, you'll feel, even when the bass just barely picks it up and sits there, you'll feel that little bluegill tap. You'll feel it, and then just set the hook, right? Reel in the slack first so you don't break your line. But now, equally as important, if you're fishing a body of water where the bottom of the water is muddy with a dark color, like Salt Springs Valley Reservoir, ponds, river systems like the Delta, right? And like these cow pasture places like Kelsey, the Salt Springs Valley Reservoir, the Delta, Clear Lake, some of these places, when you look down, the floor is like almost black and it may look like you have zero visibility, like wow. But then when you look down and you see something light, you'd be like, oh, I can actually see down 4 or 5 feet. It's just the ground's just like mucky black, right? It's dark colored. Well, when a bass makes a bed in that, it's usually reverse. You'll see all the silt is all dark and black or really dark brown, right? And then when the fish fans the bed off, the rocks that are tan or red or even white and any clam shells will make this bed look like a white bed, like it's all bright. So you'll see these bright white circles. And when you see those, same thing. Only good thing about that is those bright white circles, the dark spot on those is always that bass. You'll see sometimes two or sometimes just one. And you might see the dark spot kind of shift and move. You might see it disappear and then just see the whole circle. Then all of a sudden you see that dark shade come back in. So they're easier to spot when they're light colored beds in dirty water. But the second the fish, this is the opposite. So in a nice tan colored bottom, where when the fish makes a bed, it's dark. If the fish is on the bed, you can't see them as well. They blend in. The second they cruise and move around the bed, you can see them clear as day as that dark fish contrasts with that tan bottom. Now, the dirty bottom, you have this white bed that looks like a full moon, and it's all bright, and you can see it from like far away, and you can see the fish on it. But if you get too close and you spook that fish, the second that fish leaves, you can't. You lose track of it. You can't tell if it went left or right, what way it went. You usually can't see them very well. So again, in the circumstances when the fish don't fully lock, they're kind of spooky. Look for the beds. So identify, does your fishery or the area you're fishing have dark beds or light beds, and then just start looking for light spots where you see the water looks dark and you just see kind of a patch of lightness up ahead. That's probably a bed. Cast to it, cast past it, right? Same thing in the other type of fishery where it's tan bottom, and then you see this dark circle up ahead, cast past it, and then bring it to it. And that alone will save you so much freaking headache, trust me. So hope that little tip helps. Maybe everybody knew it already, but I don't know. It's just I think that's an important just bass fishing 101 to know for spawning is easy way to identify beds from far away and fish them with long casts when they're spooky. When they're not as spooky and they're more locked in, that's when you can cruise almost within a few feet of them, and then they might kind of spook off. But where they're consistently persistent on their bed, and usually they're pretty aggressive towards anything thrown on their bed, that's a wonderful time. I don't think we're there yet. A couple more days more. But the only problem is we have a storm system coming in, I think, Sunday. So maybe not tomorrow, but the day after tomorrow. So I'm assuming, and then next week looks like it's going to be all in the 60s. So we're going to have a cold front come in. So these fish may slowly move back up because we're going to have a week of 60s. So I think they'll stay off Sunday, maybe Monday, Tuesday, and then by Wednesday, Thursday, even though it's probably still cold and maybe a little overcast, they're going to move right back up and do their thing eventually. They don't care. Eventually, they're going to be spawning no matter what's going on. So they're not going to wait forever. But they're in this beginning stage, they can get real finicky and pull on and off. So your fishing can adjust based on that. So when they're like this, I recommend long casts. Try to identify potential beds. Blind fish for them, because if you go up looking for them, you're going to spook a majority of your fish before you get to them. They're going to see you before you see them. They've got better advantage of that underneath the water. And then just look for their beds and fish the beds. Don't even worry about the fish. That's if you're having fun. Now, you want to go bed hunting for a monster, that more power to you. This is the perfect time for that, where you can just put your hat on real low like this, have your nice cocoon glasses or something, or your like goggles down near, and no light penetrates in, and cruise real slow and then go up spawning flats only. And then when you come to areas that don't look right, pick up, move, go to the next spawning flat, and just keep cruising until you see that behemoth. And then when you see that behemoth, you're probably gonna scare it. Then you can go back, you wait, and then you wait for the behemoth to go back on the bed, and then you slowly creep up on it. And most guys will sit there and watch that big fish and their lure, and they'll be within 3 to 5 feet of that fish, maybe 8 feet max. And that's totally a cool way to do it. What I'd prefer to do is that cruise slow, look for the big fish, and then when I see the big fish, I'm probably gonna spook it right in, because if you try to back up, your trolling motor wash is gonna spook the fish or fuck the bed up, which would be even worse, right? Excuse my language. But oh man, you turn around and you're like, oh, 10-pounder, and there's a bed like 3 feet in front of you, and then you like try to back up and you spin your trolling motor around and hit reverse and just send this jet of water that just destroys the bed and all the area around it. Yeah, if there were any, you just really screwed that situation up, right? Bass probably going to come back, but it might not. So best to just piss the fish off and do your little circle. And then what I like to do is mark exactly where that monster fish was at. I want to mark its bed. What location was it held to? And then I'll come back. I'll go eat a sandwich or I'll guard it so no other fishermen can come up and try to catch it. And I'll chill, drink a beer, whatever, soda, whatever, you float your boat, and then start fishing for it with the long cast and the feel technique. Am I pre-fishing tomorrow for the Ed Lacey Memorial? It's my daughter's birthday tomorrow, so I'm not fishing tomorrow. I'm fishing Sunday. So I think it's what's his name? Something Montero is a kayak fisherman. He has a bass boat too. He's got a YouTube channel. Me and him are gonna go co-shoot a video at either Pedro or New Maloney's, and we'll be out there Sunday. So we're gonna go shoot a video together Sunday, and I think we're gonna shoot for Pedro. We might be going to New Maloney's, in which case I'll probably pre-fish Pedro then sometime next week, Monday through Friday. Wednesday, I got to go up to Jay's house and put an appliance in for him, and then I might fish that day as well. Do like a half day. So, hey, Fong, nice to see you on. Finally made the live stream. Yep, you're tying jigs. So for anybody who wants to pick up a real top quality jig, check out the green tackle box. So Fong Zhang here, he ties jigs. He pours like Ned rig heads. I think he does some hooks, drop shot weights. I know he does the drop shot weights. He has some nice quality jigs. I went over to the Angler's Edge Market in Snelling and picked up a bunch of them. So I got to pick up some more. Oh, you have my autism acceptance jigs. Just working on the others. Nice. When you have the whole pack ready, let me know. I'll come pick them up, and then I'll showcase them here on the channel. So I'm going to pick up a set of autism acceptance jigs from Fong here, from the green tackle box, and then we're going to put them up somewhere in the background. They're not going to get used ever, probably. I might take one out of the set and use it, but just for good luck to see if I crack them with that particular jig, right? Because of the autism awareness. One of my kids has autism, so not too bad, but a little bit. So I'm excited to get those, put them up there like a collector's set or something, and then you're making me a bunch of other jigs. I'm gonna go out and smack them. We'll put a video together of me doing that. So, yep. Glad to see you on, and you made it. Smash that like button if you get a chance, brother. Appreciate you very much. And feel free to share this video anywhere on Reddit, Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, wherever. Let people know, come hang out, talk on the live stream. So the last 30 minutes of the show, usually we appreciate it. We usually leave the floor open to discussion, to jokes, to any stories. to talking about different stuff. Try to keep it fishing related, but we go down rabbit holes down here quite often. So anything you guys want to talk about, any topics, any specific lakes or subjects you guys want to go over and discuss, feel free. It's open forum. You have my whole order ready by the Ed Lacey tourney. Thanks. Awesome. I think I'm gonna be focusing a lot on trying to build my business as best I can in the next upcoming few weeks. But I have some time, so I'm thinking sometime next week I'm gonna probably do some pre-fishing for the Ed Lacey during the weekdays when the lake won't be full of people. So on the weekend, there's going to be a million boats out at Don Pedro, out at New Maloney's, all of those. So Saturday is going to be the most busiest. Sunday will be still pretty busy. But if I go out there on like a Tuesday or a Wednesday or a Thursday, I'm probably pretty much guaranteed a nice, peaceful trip and a better shot at probably figuring them out and finding some better quality fish. So I know a couple places in Rogers that I want to check, a couple places in Big Creek I want to check. There's quite a few places near Mexican Gulch and Blue Oaks that I want to check down by the dam. There's a few places in Fleming that I like to go check that they'll see some bass spawn up on some certain flats over there. The Boneyard or Graveyard area, there's a couple places I'll check in sometimes over there for spawn. Depending on water levels, I might run into Hatch Creek even. Sometimes it holds monsters, not a lot of numbers, but monsters will spawn back there. Woods Creek can also be a great spawning ground. There's a lot of island tops and flats. Woods Creek would be the equivalent of like Horseshoe Bend for McClure, kind of. It's where there's usually a lot more numbers. Moccasin Point, though, usually has some big bass in it too. A lot of trout up in there, planted usually as well. So a lot of food for the bigger bass. So I might go check. There's a lot to go check in. So I think I'm gonna do a lot of running and looking to try to find where the more quality fish and beds are. Try to catch a few, make a little video of it. But that's probably going to be my focus on one or two of the days of the week. I might go 2 times and pre-fish. One time mostly driving around checking stuff out. Or I might even have to do that for 2 whole trips because the lake is so damn huge. So I give a proper 3 or 4 hours in each arm that I think these fish might be in. And then make my decision off of that, I'll share my info with you guys too, especially the crew. Anyone who's fishing the Ed Lacey, I'll tell you what at least is working for me. So at least you have a base starting point. Or if I don't do very good, you know what not to do. Because I'm not gonna lie to you, I'll tell you what's what. And then come the day of the tournament, may the best fisherman win. Screw it, I don't care. I'm open about that. Yeah, I'm not going to get rich, winning tournaments. I might win a few, and the more I keep my mouth shut, maybe the better my chances of winning are. But my main goal is to share and help everybody, create an awesome environment, entertain everybody, put a smile on your face, hopefully help put a fish in your boat, and become a beloved place for fishermen and women to spend their time hanging out, learning, discussing, and being a cool community. That I'd have a much better chance of actually making a living off of than if I went gung-ho Rambo, fished every day for the rest of my life. My chances of actually breaking even and making money bass fishing are still not that good. Even only a small percent of pros actually make positive incomes bass fishing. Most of their money comes from advertisements and little sponsorships and other stuff that they get. And a lot of them have jobs too. Like Matt Frazier works at a car. I think he's a salesman or a manager, right? These guys go out there and crush it. They do good, but their main income is not fishing. And so I'm not in this for the money. I'm in it for the enjoyment and the great time, but also hopefully it could turn into something that pays some bills and does something, but it's going to be my way having fun. Because I know I mean I may be a great fisherman, but I'm not Roland Martin, Kevin Van Dam, and I'm also old. So I want to have fun and entertain and grow and just that's what I want to do here. So, yep, exactly. That's what my kids are all hooked on fishing. Pretty much all of them want to go with me. Speaking of which, hold on, guys. Hey, Caleb, what's it? What? Yeah. I don't know, buddy. I'd have to help you out in a little bit. I'm doing my live stream right now. I could help you try to figure that out in a minute when I get off. Yeah. No, 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 no. You wait and I'll help you. All right, buddy? I promise. I promise I'll help you when I get off, okay? I'll help you look at it when I get off. Okay, but I'm on my live stream, buddy. I love you. All right, bye. Oh man, my weird passions are rubbing off on my kids. So I like collecting, and then what I do is I have Jerry Rice, Joe Montana, Steve Young. I have everybody. I have almost every great 49er ever. I've got their autographed jerseys, balls, all kinds of stuff. So a lot of this I collect actually to resell it or as like a value holder, where like I say, man, that's a great deal. A Will Clark legit autographed baseball for only like $30 because someone's hurting hard times or it's an auction. Will Clark went to some place, got, paid $500, $1,000, signed 100, 200 baseballs, and you happen to get a steal because it's a Sunday and nobody was paying attention to the auction. You get one online like an eBay or an auction house. There's all kinds of different ways I've came across this stuff. Another way is I am a Citibank member, so I got to go meet this picture right there. I got to go meet Nick Bosa, and I got right there a Nick Bosa autograph football. I got a picture with him, all that stuff, and it wasn't very expensive at all. So a lot of this stuff I've got like that. So, anyways, my kid just calls me, and he's like, his grandma left him a old M&M's vending machine many years ago, and he's all, there's some Raider stuff too. I got some Raider stuff. I got some Cowboy stuff. I'm a Niner fan, but I've got a ton of Raider stuff as well that I like sell or I keep because there's a couple players that I got mad respect for too. So I'm like, man, like good old Bo Jackson stuff like that. So there's a couple of monsters, and I'm like, I gotta have their stuff. So I'm like, I'm more of like a dream team where like back in the days, I had allegiance to the Giants and the 49ers, but it was always like, imagine if we had Marshall Falk, or imagine if we had, you know, this guy or that guy on our team, or you know what I'm saying? So like you knew the best players. Same in baseball. Nolan Ryan, Roger Clemens, Wade Boggs, Sandy Alomar Jr., like Barry Bonds, Mark McGuire, Jose Canseco. You knew all the names, right? So you knew the top players of every team. You wish you could make like a dream team. Like imagine if Chuck Norris and Bruce Lee were on the same team, right? So anyways, so my kid calls me just now and he's asking me what I think his M&M dispenser is worth and if we can take him to the pawn shop play or not the antique store on Sunday. Like he wants to sell it. I'm like, whoa, 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 hold your horses. For one, you may not want to sell it if it's got sentimental value from your grandma. Two, if you do, you got to value what you think it's worth. And then three, put it up online before you go taking it to a store and get offered some chump change for it. or maybe not even get offered anything, or they sell it on consignment. So it's like he's a kid. I got to explain to him how it all works. So that was fun. That was funny. I didn't expect to get that phone call. But yeah, and my other son, he's kind of similar, but he also likes doing my HVAC. And all the kids love fishing, so all my kids are hooked on fishing. I take them fishing. The girls like going. Both of the boys like going. But one of my sons, actually, they all want to work with me too because I pay them money, and they're like, "What? You went with dad and he paid you $60, like, and all you did was like pull his bag of tools around and screw a couple of bolts in here and there, and like screw this wire. I'd let him do one thing, and I'd check it, and like no real crazy work, but just getting the love of the do working with your hands and with machines and tools and all that. And so I would make, maybe I'd take my kid for a day of work and I might make $800 that day and give him 60, $70. Like, here, psh, and their eyes just light up. They don't do drugs. They don't do stuff like we keep an eye on their allowances, so they don't spend it on dumb things, but they do. Like, we knew how much my son had, and we go away one day, we come back, and we look in the garage and we find like 6 ice cream wrappers like tucked away. We're like, "What? You got ice cream?" And he knew we would get mad if he bought a bunch. So what he did is, when his grandpa and his uncle were watching him and we weren't there, he's like, "Hey, I'm gonna go grab some ice cream." And they're like, "Well, buy us some." And he's like, "Don't tell." And he ate like 4 ice creams to his head and gave gave my dad and my brother one. He's smart little booger, but dumb at the same time. Broke like 20 something bucks on ice cream on one day. And I'm like, "Dude, you could have went to Save Mart or wherever and bought a $5 tub and ate to your little heart content." Like, God, I'm trying to teach them about money, and they learn. Sometimes they learn the hard way, but I don't know. You got to let them trip and fall every once in a while, because if you're a helicopter and you don't let them spread their wings, right, they're gonna be all not gonna be ready for the real world. That's for sure. So, anyways, appreciate you guys. We got about 5 minutes left on for the night. Smash that like if you're new. If you haven't hit it already, thank you guys for watching. Let's see. How old was your son when you first started taking him fishing? The reason I ask is because my son is 4 and I'm not sure if he would like it yet. Oh, well, Mark, I took my kids fishing at about 4 to 5 years old, but only when I knew that it was going to be catching. I'd never took my kids for the first few times. I never took my kids fishing. I only went when it was like 100 fish or 20, 40 fish days, and I could give them a drop shot and they would catch it. And honestly, the first way I would recommend getting a kid hooked into fishing is the earlier the better. And what you need to do, honestly, is catch some fish and put the fish on their hook and drop it in the water and act like you cast and let the fish swim off and close, and then hand the pole to the kid and tell them you think that they're going to get a fish, that you just made a perfect cast and you've seen a fish over there, and then flip the bell while it's in their hand and just watch them light up and let them catch a few fish like that. Don't ever break the news and tell them you did that, but throughout the day, put a couple fish on their pole, one in the morning, one in the afternoon, one towards the end of the day, whatever. At least put a few so that they enjoy the trip. And if they start catching fish, then you don't need to start putting the fish on. But if the kids go on enough fishing trips and they do not catch fish, they will be pushed away from it because they'll be bored. Kids these days, they're getting used to electronics at an earlier age. So I highly recommend to keep their mind on fishing and to get them truly hooked, because literally the second that fish is pulling and you start encouraging, like, "Yeah, you got a fish, buddy. Yeah, you got a fish." Yeah, it's this big charade, but you're literally creating this thing in their body where they're getting like hooked on drugs, where their brain's like, "Oh shit, dad's proud. Oh yeah, this whoa, there's something in the water actually pulling on the other end of this. Whoa, and it feels so big to that little kid. The little 1, 2 pound bass feels like a Moby Dick, right? And they're just like, oh, don't start them off with bluegills. Take them fishing, and if anything, throw a bass on their hook for them. Go when it's nice and lively. Just drag the bass in, kind of, hey, let me see your stuff. When they're not, hey, look over there. Make sure it's not obvious, and try to be good at hiding it. If you got another adult in the boat with you, great. Keep them preoccupied. Take the fish off of your rod. Set your rod down. Hold the fish in the water. Wait 20, 30 seconds. Do. Hey, buddy, let me look at your rod. I need to do something, and then your buddy gets their attention over here, and then you hook it up. If you can really convince them they're catching some fish, and you do that just a few times, their brains and their body will literally become addicted like drugs. I'm saying, like, it's like literally, it's like a bad thing, because what if your kid doesn't really want fishing? You're literally forcing it on them this way, though, because you do that 2, 3, 4 times, and their brain is pushing out this dopamine, and they're feeling this rush and this excitement at an early age that is unique and almost unlike anything else. And it's primal too, in a sense, like hunting, I think, in a man especially, but in any human, the dominating the wild and knowing, you succeeded there. So I just think that if you're going to take them fishing, take them as early as you want, 4 or 5 years old. Don't play dink. I mean, you can, but I wouldn't dink around with bluegill. I'd go straight for something like bass or trout. Put some fish on their hooks if you have to. Let them fish for reels, though, in between it. So cast for them and teach them and show them how to reel, show them how to jiggle and wiggle, and you'll be surprised, they'll actually start catching fish on their own. You might not even have to cheat and put a fish on the hook. But if an hour or two goes by, you noticing that kid is getting anxious, that kid is getting sad, put the fish on the hook. All they got to do is catch 1 or 2 fish all day. They're going to go home telling mom or dad or whoever. They're going to go home bragging. They're going to have a beaming, ear to ear smile. Take them out for ice cream after the fishing trip and pump them up and talk about, do you remember when you caught that fish? Wasn't it? All these little things that you do within a few trips, you will create a super fisherman. You will create a kid that will become a diehard fisherman by doing those few things right there. And the earlier you do it, the better. Because if you take an 8-year-old, a 10-year-old out fishing, they're not going to be as easy to fall for that whole, hey, that's the fish you just caught. I seen you put the fish on my hook. They're not going to like that. And then if they try to genuinely catch a fish for 4 or 5 hours and they don't get one, they're going to be pissed and they're not going to want to keep fishing. So you start them out early enough and cheat. that's my advice. Live minnows is fun. So yeah, no, appreciate it. Try to do what I can, and I don't think of it as cheating because it's the good thing, right? It's not like you're lying to your wife or you're lying like to God or something. It's not like you're cheating in a tournament and you're planting fish. You're literally just doing something though that gives your kid the ability to now, and once you've done that for a few times, now when you really give them a drop shot rod, now they know how to cast or whatever, little Ned rig or something. Now they'll have the patience to wait an hour or two and actually get a bite and catch their fish, and then keep doing it and catch 2 or 3, 1 or 2, then 2 or 3, then 4 or 5. Next thing you know, they're out fishing you or catching just as many. And that's my son Jonathan. I started him exactly like that at about 4 or 5 years old, probably 4, and right around that age. And I did it that exact way because he couldn't catch fish for like the first year and a half, 2 years of his life. When I took him between 4 and 6, he caught like 3 fish in 2 years on his own. But in the meantime, when I took him, he would always go home without being skunked. You'd always catch 1 to 3 fish a day. But when I started actually seeing him catch fish on his own, it was on. Then what I would do is I would actually let him fish all day long. When he started, I would notice him when 2 or 3 hours went by and he started getting antsy and kind of worked up or just not happy. I would then do the little fish technique, and next thing you know, he's watching his pole. He doesn't care about video games or food. He's not worried about when we're going home or how hot it is. He's back to watching his rod. And then you balance that. And then, like I said, they start actually catching fish consistently. The next thing you know, they're actually fishermen. But in the meantime, don't forget to teach them, though. It's not just that simple, so that by putting a fish on the hook, what you're doing is you're like hooking them like a drug dealer. Like you're literally giving them a dopamine hit. You're making them happy. You're artificially giving them all this pride, this success, this feeling of accomplishment, right? Because what you're doing is you're boosting them up so that in real fishing they can handle those down times and the in between bites and in between fish, so that they have the confidence. And I can't see that as a bad thing. Anywhere else in life, lying or doing anything like that, yeah, is not good. But I think that in the first year or two of a kid's fishing, there's nothing wrong with it. I think you will literally create a diehard fisherman, a fishing pal for life who will always go with you. But if the kid remembers these trips are boring and it's hot and sweaty, there's no shade, dad just bitches and yells when he gets snagged and loses lures, dad's catching a fish and I can't get the net right. If the kid is, inundated with either boredom or negativity, they're not going to ever want to go fishing again. So it's a catch-22, right? Because if you take them when they're too old, you either have to wait until they're old enough and then take them on a really good day, and then when they're smart enough to actually learn and comprehend, and if they're decent, then in the first trip or two they'll start catching fish and they'll either like it or they won't. Some kids literally get addicted later in life, but if you take them at a young age like that and you like forcefully addict them, yeah, you're gonna have a little fishing maniac. That's what I got. I got one. Well, all four of my kids like fishing, but one of them's like gung ho like me. So, anyways, but he follows me with my HVAC stuff. I think he's gonna work with his hands for sure. Whatever he does, he's smart too. So we'll see where he goes. But I'm gonna help guide him the best I can, just like I try to help with you guys and gals. And sometimes I need guidance from you, like point me to the bathroom when I'm stumbling in bed. Well, now point me to the food. That's usually what it is. I need to eat. Anyways, thought there was like a giant bee buzzing or humming around. There's actually some weird ass music playing outside. That was weird. Anyways, 9:00, folks. We ran a little bit late. Thanks everybody for watching. Smash the like button, subscribe, share if you're new here. Always consider being a member if you're not. We appreciate the support. If you'd like to support the channel, that's one way you can do it. But otherwise, thank you guys so much for hanging out with me, talking fishing and whatever else we talk about. And we'll see you on the next live stream Monday, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. as always. And remember, if I miss one, I'll try to be on the very next day. So you may occasionally see them Tuesdays and Thursdays and even on Saturday and Sunday. I do also occasionally pop in with just some random giveaways and cool stuff. So make sure your notification bells are checked. But thank you again so much. And tight lines, everybody. I hope you guys smash them, catch the fish of your lifetime and your dreams. Go out there and get them. Whether you're shore fishing, you don't need a boat. This is the time of year any old person can catch a big fish. Just get out there, have fun, enjoy it, and live life, as you never know how much time we got here on this beautiful green earth. So enjoy it, live it up. Thank you very much, and we'll see you on the next one.